All right, hi everybody. We're going to be doing a short lesson today on how to transform an equation into standard form. So we learned the other day that standard form is written in the form of ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are all integer values. One other thing you may remember from our notes is that the value of a must be positive. Sometimes you'll see in the textbook where a isn't positive, but I think I mentioned that your 8th grade teachers and the high school teachers will be expecting that you change a to a positive if it's a negative. So we'll go through some of these and how to do them, how to transform them, and how to make sure that that a value is a positive. So let's start with an example like y equals 3/4 x plus 2. Remember that in standard form, a couple of things need to be true. First of all, we need to have all integer values, so we're going to need to start by clearing the equation of all fractions. Let's see if you remember how to do that. The second part of this is going to be that the x and the y need to be on the same side of the equation. So let's take a look back and see what we remember about how we clear the equation of fractions. So I need to get rid of that denominator of 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the entire equation and we're going to distribute the whole thing by our greatest common, our least common denominator. What that means is we multiply every single term by that 4. So here's what we've got in our next step. 4y equals, remember what happens when you multiply 4 times 3/4 x? The 4's cancel out and we're left with 3x. 4 times 2 is 8. So 4y equals 3x plus 8. We're done with our first step, which is clearing the fractions. Now we're on to step 2, which is gathering x and y on the same side. Typically, the way that I'll do this is take 3x away from the right side, so it's on the left, and here's where I'm left. Negative 3x plus 4y equals 8. And remember, the very last thing we have to keep in mind is that this a value must be positive. So what can I do to get this negative 3 into a positive 3? Well, it has to do with distributing. I'm going to take the entire equation, wrap it, and distribute the whole thing by negative 1. Remember that when we multiply by negative 1, everything turns into its opposite. So every part of the equation changes to its opposite when you distribute by a negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 3x gives us positive 3x. Negative 1 times 4y is negative 4y. And negative 1 times 8 is negative 8. Now we've got an equation that's in standard form. Ax plus by equals c. Let's try another couple of examples here. You guys can do these right along with me. So we've got y equals negative 2/5 x plus 1. We're going to wrap the whole thing, and we're going to multiply it by 5. You'll see why I'm not multiplying it by negative 5 when we get to our second step. So we're going to distribute everything by 5. That leaves me with 5y equals negative 2x plus 5. My only step that's left is to get that negative 2x to the other side of the equation. And you'll see here that I do not need to do that distributing by negative 1 because it was negative in the original here. When I added to both sides to get it, on the same side as the y, we already turned it into a positive. So my answer, 2x plus 5y equals 5. And the next one, y equals 5/3 x minus 3. We're going to wrap the whole thing. We're going to distribute it by 3. We've got 3y equals 5x minus 9. Let's get that 5x to the other side, or I should say the x to the other side. And here we have negative 5x plus 3y equals negative 9. Remember that I don't want this a value to be a negative, so I'm going to wrap the whole thing and distribute by a negative 1 to make everything into its opposite. So we've got 5x minus 3y equals 9. And there's my equation in standard form. If, say, we had an equation like y equals 1/2 x minus 1/5. Let's think about what we would do to solve this. Well, if I needed to get everything into integer values, what I'm looking for is the least common denominator of 2 and 5. So in this case, I'm going to wrap the whole thing and distribute by 10. That would leave me with 10y equals 5x minus 2. From there, I would go through my same steps of getting the x and the y on the same side. I'll finish this up here. Negative 5x plus 10y equals negative 2. And I'm going to multiply the entire thing by negative 1 to get that a value to be a positive. I've got 5x minus 10y equals positive 2. One of the things I didn't say, and I hope you guys know is always okay, any of these times where you see a 5x minus 10y, if you're still going back and using definition of subtraction, know that that's okay. 5x minus 3y, we know that's the same thing as 5x plus negative 3y. So if you're using definition of subtraction, please know that that is always okay with me. All right, that's how we transform into standard form. Key ideas are: we need all integer values. We need x and y on the same side. And finally, a must be positive. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks.